Hello, dear ones. Zeb Green here, the MC, Master of Ceremonies for Sacred Mischief. Just coming in to talk a little bit today about this phenomenal book, Occupied by Nonviolence, A Palestinian Woman Speaks by Jean Zaru. So, phenomenal book. So, as we all know, international attention has focused on Israel and Palestine over the last few months. That October 7th attack on Israel by Hamas horrified the world. The loss of life, the hostages taken, and the correlation to rising anti-Semitism around the globe has shaken many people to their core. Israel's onslaught against Gaza that followed was and is entirely disproportionate. The current death toll in Gaza is over 20,000 people. The displacement is beyond belief. Hearts are so shattered. International viewers are stunned and lost in a sea of confusion, despair, fear, and heartbreak. For so many of us, we don't even know how to begin following the story. Outside of Gaza and occupied Palestine, it's easy to feel as if that October 7th attack came out of nowhere. Our media has not been readily informing us of the ongoing occupation, blockade, and injustices facing Palestine. We haven't seen how far they've been pushed. We do not see the force that Israel places on Palestine. We are completely removed from the context. In reading the context, I'm incredibly grateful for books such as this, as Occupied by Nonviolence by Jean Zaru. This book is not a story about Gaza. It's a story more centered in the West Bank. It's a story that details life in occupied Palestine. Zaru is a Palestinian Christian, a Quaker, and a nonviolent peace activist. Zaru shares her story, the work of peace, the challenges of nonviolence in a context of a brutal military occupation, empathy with those who feel called to violent resistance, and ultimately, Zaru advocates for a Christian view of peacemaking that believes it truly can happen. We are seeing the challenge for Christians to truly see the neighbor as divine, and for all people to see the neighbor as divine. The neighbor in Palestine is complicated. The neighbors are from different religions: Christian, Jewish, Muslim, and Druze. The neighbors are Palestinian, international observers, Israel and Israeli settlers, and illegal settlements. Neighbors are people who have arrested you and your children. Neighbors are people who have killed you or your loved ones. Neighbors are descended from those you have killed. Neighbors and enemies are often synonyms. How do people begin to bridge that divide? Zaru raises that question and challenges people to that work. The path of her faith doesn't let us dismiss and hate our neighbor or our enemy. We're called to love them. One of the insights I found particularly interesting was the teaching of Sula, an Arabic and Palestinian approach to peacemaking, to reconciliation. In Sula, the first step is for the person who has caused harm to find a mediator, someone who is well respected and trusted by the harmed party, someone to help advance a path towards reconciliation. A meeting is set with the mediator, the person who caused harm, the harmed party, and the harmed party's extended community of support. In Sula, community participation is key. The person who caused the harm goes to the assembled group, apologizes for the hurt, takes ownership of the abuse, and promises to make amends. Sula requires humility and truth-telling. A plan is made for addressing the harm and working towards repair. The mediator takes responsibility for seeing that the amends are made. In this way, the person making amends is held accountable. Making amends is seen as a community-wide responsibility. After the amends are made, forgiveness is given. The harmed party affirms that forgiveness is a gift of God and that the other party is welcome in the home. Following the forgiveness, the people share a meal, break bread, and affirm that community has been restored. Loving an enemy does not mean ignoring the harm that they have done to you. Loving an enemy does not take away the need to be held accountable. Loving an enemy does not mean foregoing the truth. Loving the enemy means being open to the possibility of transformation. To get to transformation, there needs to be truth-telling, sincere apologies, and a commitment to make changes and address the root cause of the harm. Amends are not done in private. An abusive act is a rupture to the entire community, and the healing process should include the community. A mediator should not be an outsider with no stakes involved. The mediator should be known and respected by the harmed communities, and the mediator's reputation should be on the line to make sure the amends are made. The process may sound simple, but I'd love to see it followed on a wider scale. What would it mean for nations to gather and honestly admit the harm they've caused? And to do so within the presence of the world, and commit to making amends and be held accountable to that standard in public? What would it mean for Israel to admit the harms of occupation? What would it mean for Israel to admit that their role of pushing Palestine, pushing Gaza to the brink, and leading bodies, refugees in their wake? What would it mean to really address those root causes and work towards a path to peace? I'm a lifelong student of nonviolence. The U.S. nonviolence and civil rights movement deeply inspire me. What was fascinating was reading this story about a nonviolent movement that did not emerge from Dr. King and that tradition. Truly amazing. The history of nonviolence is dynamic and diverse. Many different cultures have their own ways of approaching nonviolent change. I loved getting this brief insight into a Palestinian perspective. I highly recommend this book and hope you check it out. It's an excellent resource for gaining perspective on Palestine and its effort to challenge the occupation. It's an excellent resource in expanding our understanding of nonviolence, and it's a wonderful guide to deepen faith. Check it out at the Sacred Mischief bookstore. There'll be a link down below. Thank you for joining me on this brief foray into looking into nonviolence, to holding the complexity of Israel and Palestine, for holding the love and dream of Palestinian liberation, holding the challenge of what building peace truly looks like. May you all be well, my friends, until we meet again.